Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Dr. Roberts Music and Gear YouTube channel. My name is William Gladwell, and today we'll be talking to you about the Lusithand Devices 800TS Jazz Bass Preamp. Now, this particular bass preamp is based upon the Gallion & Kruger GK800RB's tone stack section. The GK800RB is one of the most popular amplifiers on the market today and has a very unique sound that a lot of bass players have come to recognise and love. Now, the preamp we're going to talk about today borrows the design of the EQ section from the GK800RB amplifier. So let's have a little discussion about the preamp. So for transparency's sake between us and the audience, I would like to let you know that Nuno from Lusithand Devices has sent me this product for review. Now, he hasn't paid me for a review, I just get to keep the product afterwards. Now, the opinions I have on the device are totally my own. However, it is worth noting that we here at Dr. Roberts Guitar Surgery, where the Music and Gear YouTube channel falls underneath, are now distributors for Lusithand Devices products and installers in the UK. Now, with that being said, we always aim to give you impartial reviews and demos. But with this information, you can choose to interpret the content provided today however you wish, and obviously, you can interpret it however you wish when it comes to your purchasing decisions. So throughout the development process of this particular preamp, I've actually been helping Nuno out by testing some of the prototype plates, giving him some feedback, and yeah, just seeing what works best and what doesn't. So while Nuno has done all the hard work, it's nice to say that I've actually helped develop it a little bit, and it's a little bit of a joint venture almost. So as always, the links for Lusithand Devices and Nuno's email address will be in the description below, so you can check out his products, ask him any questions that you have directly. But we will always do our best to answer any questions you have in the comments section below. So like some of the other preamps from Nuno that I've featured on this channel, this one is designed to be a direct drop-in replacement for any existing preamp you may have. Or with small modifications to your instrument, it's also designed to drop into a bass that has a passive control plate. So the preamp is designed to have a single 9-volt battery go underneath it, so you don't actually have to fit a battery box into the bass. Or it can take advantage of any existing battery wiring that may have been there from a previous preamp install. You will, however, I imagine with most basses that haven't had a preamp fitted previously, need to install a jack socket somewhere on the body of the bass. However, if your bass has already had a preamp installed, then swapping it over to this one will be rather quite easy. Now, if you look at the install video of the filter preamp I installed on my bass earlier this year, you will notice that there has been some quality of life improvements. The angle of the connectors for the pickups have been changed, which makes them easier to wire up and get the cables in and tighten everything down. The jack socket connector is now removable from the main PCB, which means you won't have to either drill a large hole in your bass to actually get the jack socket physically through it, and you also won't have to desolder anything either. Now, that PCB connector is all done via screw terminals, and everything is just ready to go, so you unplug it, pull the wires through, and then plug it back in. So that also now means that if your bass previously hasn't had a preamp installed, it's even easier than it was before to actually install the jack socket. You now pretty much only need to drill a small hole and actually route out a little bit of cavity for the jack socket connector to go itself. So yeah, much easier. There is also now a dedicated ground connector on the PCB of the preamp. Now that means if you want to, you can actually take all the grounds on your bass, so both the pickup grounds, the ground for the bridge and any other body grounds, solder them onto one wire, and actually it will go into this one singular dedicated slot. Now that's what I've chosen to do with my bass, as it makes installing and removing preamps for testing and stuff like that just generally a little bit easier. But of course, you can still do it the way that requires no soldering, because it'll still have all the individual connections for each pickup and the body ground points there as well. So you have options now, which is great. So the 800TS preamp borrows the EQ section from the famous GK800RB amplifier, and it squeezes it into an onboard preamp loaded onto a jazz plate for you jazz bass lovers. The jazz plate comes with two options: neck volume and bridge volume, or master volume and blend. So the four main controls it has are a treble control with a boost and cut of around 4 kHz, a bass control with a boost and cut at around 60 Hz, a high mid control with a boost and cut around 1 kHz, and a low mid control with a boost and cut around 250 Hz. It'll also have something quite cool, which is a 2-position filter on it for tone. Now, instead of having your standard rotary tone knob, it'll have a filter which has 2 cut positions. In the off position, nothing is affected. In the first position, it is like roughly rolling your passive tone control pot to about halfway, and in the second position, it's basically like turning it all the way down. Now, it'll also have an active and passive switch, so you can still use the bass independently of the active circuitry as well. Now, battery-wise, this system will run either on 9 volts, 18 volts, or 27 volts. I myself have only tested it in the 9 volt and the 18 volt mode, but the reason you'd want more than a single 9 volt battery is for extra headroom. Basically, that means that you have much more headroom with extra voltage before you get any clipping, any distortion, or any nasty sounds or anything like that. Now, today I'll be demonstrating it to you in 18 volt mode because my bass is wired up for 18 volts. So at 9 volts, it has a current draw of roughly 2 milliamp hours. Not 100% sure what it is at 18 or 27 volts, but that gives you a bit of an idea of how much juice the preamp is actually going to use. Okay, so let's plug everything in and let's do a demo of the sounds. Okay, so now let's take a look at the sounds from the actual preamp itself. For reference, I have audio feeds coming out of the amp from a DI. I have it coming from a microphone in front of the cab. And I have a microphone in the room just behind the camera, so we get a little bit of a mix of everything, so you can kind of get a feel for how it will sound in a live, pretty much, environment. Okay, so what I want to do now is show you what it sounds like with everything flat. Both pickups engaged, all the controls in the middle, none of the kind of positions brought in for the tone cuts, anything like that, all fully open. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is show it to you with my preferred setting for the actual split on the pickups. Now, how I like to have it is going more towards the actual neck pickup itself by about, I'd say, 3/4 of a turn on the blend knob, so you get just a little bit of bite from the bridge pickup in there as well, and it sounds a bit like this. So now set it back to the pickups being equal amounts of volume. So they're both up full essentially. And I'm going to show you what it is in a few different positions while I actually start playing with the kind of tone controls itself. And for reference, on the amp, everything is flat. So I'm going to bring up the treble first of all, because this has an awful lot of treble headroom, like probably more treble than you ever need. I'm going to put it up full and I'll show you. And that is something that's actually probably going to give you a little bit of tinnitus if you're not careful. But all joking aside, that is actually part of the original design of the GK800 tone stack itself. And obviously this means, yet again, it's a faithful recreation, but it depends. There might be scenarios where you actually do need all of that treble. I can think a lot about the people that do like slapping and things like that and popping, and you're just trying to get above other members of the band and things like that. You know, you've got it there, but most of the time, I tend to run it about half or just a little bit under half, like this. And I find that, for me, is a pretty good sweet spot. What I'll now do is show it to you with the treble knob all the way down. Now that position is quite nice if you want those kind of real deep kind of grooves and things like that. Now let's bring some of the extra bass control in now. Let's pump up that bass a bit. And that's got that real groovy sound. And you can bring back in a little bit more of that treble there. Real nice. Obviously then you can start playing with things like the upper mids, you can kind of scoop them out. Or you can even add more in, so I'll just turn it up the full way now pretty much. And now what I'll do is pretty much turn up the upper mid section the whole way, leaving everything else how it was just a second ago. And you can really hear how you're going to start to get that extra finger definition in. Let's add in some of that low mid knob there. Bring out some of that bass. Now this is one of those things where we've got that added low mids, that added high mids. We're bringing some of the bass out and we've got the treble pretty much bang on halfway. You get quite a good slap sound in my opinion. And now you can play with the pickup position and bring it all the way to the neck now. Same thing if I bring it all the way to the bridge. Okay, so let's get some picking tones going now. I'm going to set everything back to the middle exactly how it would be. So you've got both pickups essentially in there, in the middle position here, and you've got the treble, mids, upper mids, lower mids, everything like that, all set around the same kind of thing, so it's not boosting, not cutting anything. Okay, so another cool picking sound that I've got here is I've boosted some bass there on it and I have taken away a little bit of the treble. I have added a good amount of both the lower mids and the upper mids. So let's see what that sounds like. So as you can see with the plectrum, you get quite a wide range of sounds, which is great because it does show how versatile the preamp can be for different situations. Not just slap, not just picking, but with an actual, or should I say finger picking, but with an actual plectrum as well. So yeah, it's a lot different. Let me show you what this thing is like in passive mode quickly. Okay, so what I want to do now is show you the difference between active and passive mode. Now I have the EQ on the bass completely flat, both pickups are fully engaged, and I haven't got any of the tone reduction switches engaged. So let's see what it looks like when it is in active mode, just to remind you. Let's turn it into passive mode. So I've engaged the active mode again, and what I'm going to show you now is the two different filters positions that it has for tone. So right now, it's completely open. Going to bring it to the middle position, and bring it to the fully closed position. So you can see quite a difference there. And if I put it back into passive mode, you will see and of course, it obviously still works in passive mode as well. And that switch does actually make a massive difference to things. I didn't think I would like it at first when Nuno first suggested it, but now I've actually had a chance to play with it, I've realised it really is quite handy. Compared to using your normal rotary tone knob that you'd have, it's very easy just to quickly flick into something and get it into a different couple of positions, so you can go from doing something where it requires a little bit more high energy and a little bit more kind of definition in those finger notes, to then going back very quickly to just being able to chill something out, but not affecting the rest of your normal tone. And I found myself using it way more than I thought I would when I've been playing live. So yeah, something I was quite sceptical about, I ended up quite liking. Okay, so now I'm actually adding in another little section after the fact of filming, because there's something else I wanted to talk to you about. So talking about the three-way tone position switch, I've realised it can actually do some more interesting things if you play with the rest of the EQ section. So obviously going back, we've got the cuts, this is it fully open, middle position, and the fully closed position basically. But what happens if we start playing around with the EQ section? So obviously here with it fully closed, you can hear that it kind of cutting out a lot of that tone. If I start driving up the treble controls and the mid controls and that bass, you'll hear that a lot of that actually comes back, but in an interesting kind of almost overdriven sounding way, and it kind of makes some cool tones. So if I set the pickup selector switch to be more towards the bridge, we'll get quite an interesting sound now. Treble whack pretty much right up there, and the upper mid's right up, and I have got the lower mid section on about 3/4, the bass kind of same about 3/4. Put it fully to the bridge now. Fully to the neck. Interesting, bring out some of that bass. Full on the lower mids. Fully back to the bridge pickup. The selector switch for the tone in the middle one. Let's set the pickups to the middle position where it's using both of them and add some of that bass back in. Another dynamic dynamic of the tone situation you can use there, where you can really kind of accentuate things and get an interesting sound from that perspective. As I said, with everything jacked up, you now get a kind of almost overdriven-y kind of sound, where you're probably pushing the preamps a little bit beyond its limits, but it actually sounds like a little bit of nice breakup. Another little dimension of things you can actually do with this, which make it quite interesting, really. So that has been the demonstration of the Lusithand Devices 800 TS Jazz Plate preamp. So what are my closing thoughts on this preamp? So for me, I've quite enjoyed using this preamp as an upgrade from the stock one that came in my Sire bass. I've liked the fact that it's pretty drop-in for most bass situations, and if not, it's not that hard to modify an existing passive bass to actually fit the unit into either. It's given me a little bit of versatility for tone that wasn't previously there, and as I said, I quite like that little toggle filter switch. That has been almost the most handy thing of all. It's got a great range in my opinion, especially on that treble side. If you need it, then it's there. And to me, it just feels like an overall well-built product. So of course, a big thank you once again to Nuno for sending out the preamp for us to have a look at today. And if you want to buy the preamp, you can of course buy it either through Nuno's website, or you can buy it directly from us if you would like it fitted as well. So if you have any questions for us, please do pop them in the comments section below. We'll do our best to answer them for you. I have been William Gladwell from Dr. Roberts Music and Gear, and we hope to see you again in the next video.